Everything was silent. Too silent. Warden Grawl stared at the screen. The prison systems had crashed again. The doors were locked, the cameras were dead, and worst of all, the system no longer showed Sergeant Mason's location. He was gone, but no alarms had gone off. No one had seen him leave. And yet, Cell 9 was empty. Grawl stood slowly. His voice trembled as he called his guards. Find him. Now. But no one answered. The command center was dark. The lights flickered like they were afraid to stay on. Grawl stepped into the hallway, hand on his blaster. The halls were empty, cold. Echoes followed his steps. He didn't know yet. But Mason was already in control. On level 3, 3 guards were trapped in the mess hall. They had sealed the door themselves. Why? Because they had seen Mason walking, slowly, down the hallway. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just walked, looking straight ahead, as if he didn't need to look behind. Because nothing could stop him. I pointed my weapon at him, one guard whispered to the others, breathing hard. My finger. It wouldn't move. It was like he turned my muscles off. He looked at me, said another, eyes wide with terror. He said nothing, but I saw every bad thing I ever did. I saw myself, and I hated it. They didn't try to open the door again. Meanwhile, deep in the security chamber, Mason moved through locked doors like they were never there. The prison systems were no longer fighting him. They were helping him. Lights turned on when he passed. Doors unlocked without a touch. Even, the surveillance bots stayed still as statues when he looked at them. In the central AI core, a technician watched the logs in panic. This can't be right, he whispered. What is it? Asked the backup commander. The prison systems, they're running. Through him. Look. He's using power from the core, but he's not touching anything. It's like the prison wants him. Then, the screen changed again. Every monitor in the control room turned black. Then words appeared. He sees you. He judges. Sentence begins now. The technicians ran. Mason entered the AI core slowly. No one stopped him. He stood before the central crystal, glowing with energy. The core should have vaporized him. Instead, it pulsed like a heartbeat. His heartbeat. From here, he saw everything. Every floor. Every prisoner. Every hidden secret. He saw Warden Grawl, hiding in a supply room. He saw the guards who had tortured prisoners. He saw the ones who were afraid, and innocent. Mason spoke at last. Just 2 words. Let justice begin. And the prison obeyed. Doors opened, only for the prisoners who had been wrongfully locked up. Lights turned red in the cells of war criminals and murderers. Gas filled their rooms. Some screamed, some begged. The others sat in silence, accepting what was coming. Outside, in the atmosphere above planet Varix, the Zarkon Empire's ships picked up strange signals. Sir, the captain said, we're getting an unknown broadcast from the prison, but we've lost control of its defenses. What kind of signal? It says, he has awakened. And sir, there's another thing. What? Every gun, turret, and drone in the prison. They're not targeting the prisoners. They're targeting us. A moment later, the sky over Varix lit up. Beams of energy blasted out from the prison walls, shooting down Zarkon ships like they were made of paper. Back in the AI core, Mason stood in silence. He wasn't angry. He wasn't violent. He was calm, completely calm. But the system around him had become a machine of judgment. Warden Grawl tried to escape through a tunnel. He made it halfway before the lights shut off. In the darkness, he heard boots behind him. Human boots. I'm sorry, he shouted. You don't understand. I was following orders. A light blinked on, just enough to show Mason's face. No, Mason said quietly. You followed fear. Now you'll feel what we did. And then the lights went out again. The prison was no longer just a building. It was something else now. Something living. And the human inside it? He was its mind. He was its soul. He was its judge. The prison had changed. What was once a cold, metal place filled with fear and screams was now quiet. but not peaceful. Something deeper was happening inside those walls. The guards were no longer in control. The prisoners were no longer afraid. And Sergeant Mason was no longer just a prisoner. He was the new warden, not chosen, not elected, but accepted by the prison itself. In the main control center, screens lit up with new security protocols. None of them came from the Zarkon Empire. They came from the system Mason now controlled. Each cell was reclassified. Instead of numbers and barcodes, cells were marked with a single word: guilty or free. Every prisoner who had once screamed for help, every innocent human or alien who had been locked away without trial, found their doors slowly sliding open. A soft voice spoke from the walls. "You are free. Go in peace. Do not return to harm." They stepped out slowly, unsure if it was a trick. But no guards stopped them. No bullets followed. For the first time, they breathed fresh air. In the old warden's office, Mason stood quietly. He looked at the chair Grawl had once sat in. High-backed, polished black metal. He didn't sit in it. Instead, he placed his hand on the panel beside it. The system reacted with a pulse of light. Authority recognized. "Welcome, Warden Mason." But Mason did not smile. He turned to the large screen on the wall. It showed images from orbit. Zarkon ships were gathering again, angry, confused, afraid. "They're coming," he said to himself. On the lower levels, the remaining human, prisoners, soldiers, engineers, medics, gathered in the old training yard. Mason had sent a message through the prison. "This is no longer just a prison. This is a fortress. And you are no longer inmates. You are defenders." Weapons were brought up from locked vaults. Not Zarkon weapons, but old Earth tech. Bullet rifles, launchers, EMP bombs. The aliens had called them primitive. Mason called them pure. And now those weapons would defend a new order. Above, in the high towers, drones activated. They were Zarkon built, yes. But now they answered to Mason. Their red lights turned blue. Defensive grids lit up across the walls. Artillery ports opened. One of the human engineers, a woman named Ray, stood next to Mason in the control room. "We're outnumbered," she said softly. Mason didn't turn. "So were we on Earth? Remember what happened?" Ray smiled. "Yeah, we won." The sky darkened. Zarkon ships entered the atmosphere, ready to fire. Inside the prison, the last of the guilty guards were locked away. Mason had judged them fairly. Some were given mercy. Some were sent to the same cells they once used against others. Warden Grawl? No one had seen him since the tunnel. A voice came from the speakers. It was the Zarkon fleet commander. "This is your last warning. Return the prison to Zarkon control, or we will destroy it. You have 60 seconds. Mason tapped a button. A small camera on the outer wall activated. It showed him standing tall, staring straight into the stars. His voice was calm. "This prison no longer belongs to the Empire. It belongs to justice. And if you think you can take it, come and try." The channel went silent. Then fire rained down from the sky. The sky turned red. Zarkon warships opened fire. Missiles, plasma beams, and railgun shots rained down on the prison fortress. The ground shook. Metal screamed. Alarms echoed through the halls. But the prison did not fall. Under Warden Mason's control, the old walls had been reborn into armor. Heavy shields, hidden deep inside the structure, activated in perfect sync. Energy domes covered the most important towers. Cannons fired back, fast, accurate, deadly. Ray shouted from the defense deck, "Sector 4 shields are holding. Enemy." "Fighters down to 40%. Mason stood calm, his eyes locked on the screen. He didn't flinch when explosions hit near the control tower. He didn't shout when communications went dark for a second. He only spoke one order. "Don't. Survive. Win." In the training yard, the human defenders rushed into position. Former prisoners, now soldiers, took up weapons. Most had never fired in years. Some had never fired at all. But now, they had purpose. And purpose is stronger than fear. Aliens, once called Earth weapons primitive. But when the Zarkon dropships landed near the outer gates, those same weapons roared like thunder. Old rifles spat steel. RPGs screamed through the air. Smoke and flame covered the field. A squad of Zarkon elites rushed forward, armored, fast, trained to crush resistance. But they never expected a human mechanic named Tom to shoot their leader in the face with a single clean shot. They bleed. Just like us, Tom said, reloading. But they die faster. Inside the prison, Mason watched as ships fell from the sky. Not all of them crashed. Some turned around. Zarkon commanders began to panic. Their enemy wasn't fleeing. Their enemy wasn't hiding. Their enemy was fighting back harder than ever. From the orbiting flagship, the Zarkon admiral screamed at his crew. "How can this happen? One human cannot do this." But deep down, he already knew the truth. This wasn't just one human. This was what humans became when pushed too far. This was vengeance. This was justice. This was humanity unchained. In the prison's heart, Mason entered the AI core again. He connected the system to the last remaining tower, a massive cannon hidden underground. One shot, but enough to change the tide of war. He stared into the screen and whispered, "Final judgment." The cannon launched. In the black sky above, the Zarkon flagship was split in half. Fire rolled across the stars. The fleet broke apart. Some ships turned to run. Others stopped transmitting. No more commands came from above. Zarkon had lost. Ray appeared beside Mason. Her face was covered in ash and sweat, but her eyes were shining. "It's over," she said. Mason looked out the window. Smoke still rose. But it was quiet now. Not peaceful, but quiet. "For now," he replied. "What happens next?" Mason didn't answer right away. He walked slowly to the old warden's chair, the one he had refused to sit in before. But now, he sat down. Not because he wanted power, because someone had to lead, someone who had felt pain, someone who had seen what power does in the wrong hands. "We rebuild," he finally said. "We protect. We never forget." Outside, prisoners turned defenders, helped each other. Wounded were carried to safety. Machines were repaired. And slowly, light returned to the walls of the prison. It was no longer just a place of punishment. It was now a shield, a symbol, a home. And in the heart of that home, one human sat in silence. The prisoner who became the warden. The man who turned fear into fire, the one name Zarkon would never forget, Mason. The prison walls were cold and black, built deep inside the rocky heart of planet Varix. This prison was made by the Zarkon Empire to hold the most dangerous creatures from across the galaxy. No prisoner had ever escaped. No prisoner had ever made the guards afraid, until now. His name was Sergeant Mason, a human, captured during a small fight on the desert moon of Cora 7. The aliens thought they caught a weak, backward soldier from a dying planet. His weapons were old, his armor was scratched, his ship was nothing but metal junk. He looked tired and beat up. He did not speak when they arrested him. He did not shout when they chained him. He did not beg when they threw him into the cell. He only stared. The alien guards laughed. "Humans are weak," one of them said. "He will cry by morning." But morning came, and the human was still silent. His cell had no bed, no light, just hard walls and metal bars. Yet the human stood in the center of the room, awake all night, watching. By the second day, small things started to happen. The security cameras near his cell began to flicker. The hallway lights blinked for a second, then went dark. A guard named Kelvac, known for being strong and fearless, asked to be moved to a different post. He said, "That human, he doesn't sleep. He just watches me." On the third day, the warden, a tall alien named Grawl, visited the cell. Grawl was a veteran. He had seen battlefields full of blood and fire. He had killed with his own claws. Nothing scared him. But when he stood in front of the human cell, he felt something strange. The human didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared, like he was waiting. "What is your plan?" Grawl asked. The human said nothing. "Answer me, Earth creature." Still. Silence. Grawl left, but something kept turning in his mind. The human's eyes were not afraid. They were calm, like he was in control. But how? He was just one man, no weapons, no help, just silence. On the fourth night, things got worse. Two guards on night duty started arguing near the human's cell. They said they were hearing whispers. One claimed the human spoke his name from inside his mind. Another swore he saw the human, smiling in the dark, even when the power was out. That same night, one of the guards disappeared. His shift ended, but he never came back. His radio was found on the floor outside the human's cell. No blood, no struggle, just gone. The prison system began to fail. Doors unlocked by themselves. Alarm systems blinked without warning. The other prisoners in nearby cells started acting strange. Some covered their faces and turned away from the human. One even shouted, "Get him away from me! He's cursed!" The warden was confused and angry. "This is madness," he told his officers. "He's just a human, a simple ground soldier. No tech, no training in mind tricks. He's nothing." But deep inside, even the warden was starting to feel it. The fear. The cold, crawling feeling every time he looked at Mason on the screen. By day 6, no one wanted the night shift near cell 9. That was Mason's cell. He still hadn't said a single word. But everyone in the prison was talking about him. They didn't fear his strength. They didn't fear his weapons. They feared what they could not explain. Why didn't he speak? Why didn't he eat? Why didn't he sleep? What was he waiting for? Some believed he was a signal, a warning. Others believed he was a weapon in human form. One guard whispered, "Maybe we didn't capture him. Maybe he let us." One of the alien officers tried to open his cell, to test him, to scare him. As soon as he touched the lock, all the power in that wing shut down. Complete darkness. Every light. Every screen. For 10 long minutes. When the lights came back, Mason was still there, standing in the same spot. But the officer was on the floor, shaking, eyes wide with fear. He refused to speak again. Now, the entire prison was on edge. Mason was alone, unarmed, and silent. But he had done what no army ever could. He had made the enemy afraid, without a single shot, and deep down, the warden knew this was just the beginning. The prison was no longer the same. Guards walked faster. Officers whispered more. Nobody joked anymore near cell 9. That was where the human was held, Sergeant Mason, the prisoner who never spoke, never slept, and never blinked. The fear had started with the guards, but now it was spreading like a virus through the whole facility. The Zarkon Empire's prison on planet Varix was built for the worst enemies in the galaxy. Monsters, warlords, assassins. They had all screamed, cried, or begged at some point. But this human, he did none of that. He just watched, and now, others were watching him too. The High Command sent a group of scientists to study Mason. Their goal was simple: understand how one unarmed human had broken the spirit of a prison. The lead scientist, Dr. Varric, arrived. With a full research team, cameras, scanners, and mental probes. "This is nonsense," Varric said on the first day. "Fear is just weakness of the mind." He stood outside Mason's cell, watching the silent human through the glass. Mason stood as always, still, calm, eyes fixed on his visitor like he could see straight into Varric's soul. "Begin scan," Varric ordered. A beam of blue light moved over Mason's body. The machines made strange noises. Error lights flashed. "Power. Spike," one technician said. "But no source." "He's just standing there," Varric muttered. "This can't be." They tried again. This time the scanner overloaded and caught fire. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the hallway. The team ran for safety. When they returned, the glass of Mason's cell had a handprint, burned into it from the inside. And yet, Mason had not moved an inch. The next day, one of the junior scientists quit the mission. She said she had nightmares. Mason appeared in her dreams. He didn't hurt her, he just stared. But every time she woke up, she felt colder, weaker. Soon, more guards asked to be reassigned. Some claimed they heard their own thoughts echoing back to them. Others said Mason knew what they were about to say before they said it. The prison's Command center became a place of fear and arguments. "This is psychological warfare," one officer shouted. "No," said another. "It's worse. He's not fighting us. He's changing us." Warden Grawl didn't sleep anymore. He watched Mason on the monitor day and night. But the longer he looked, the more he questioned everything. "Why did we bring him here?" Grawl said aloud. "What if we weren't the ones in control?" Outside Cell 9, a new rule was made. No one goes in. No one makes contact. No one speaks to the human. But it was too late. The fear had reached the prisoners too. One of them, a war criminal from the Orvac system, begged to be moved. "Put me anywhere," he said. "Even in the mines. Just not next to him." "What did he do to you?" a guard asked. "He didn't do anything. He just knows. He knows who I killed. He knows I lied. He knows everything." The warden tried to hold order, but the system was crumbling. Lights failed in random sections. Alarms triggered without cause. Security bots shut down when passing. Mason's cell. One night, a senior officer named Trilux entered the control room. His face was pale. His voice was shaking. "I want to be transferred," he said. "You?" Grawl raised an eyebrow. "You've served here 15 years. I know what I saw," Trilux whispered. He moved. Finally, Grawl leaned forward. "No, that's the thing." He moved when the lights were out, when the cameras were down. He walked to the door, stood there, and smiled. Then everything turned back on, and he was back in place like nothing happened. The warden didn't respond. He just looked at the monitors again. Mason was there, still, watching. But now something was different. His lips were curled slightly. A smile. The first smile since his capture. The meaning was clear. He wasn't trapped. He was waiting. And something was coming. That night, every door in the prison locked itself. Power in the entire West Wing shut down. And on the screen in the warden's office, the words appeared in red. "Prisoner Mason. Status unknown." The warden stared in silence. For the first time, he finally understood. The human wasn't the prisoner anymore. Everyone else was.